This one is just a classic, fun throwdown issue, but we're going to sprinkle in some necessary pieces. Thanks for joining me. My name is Daryl, and I am the host of Read Your Comics. I am continuing to look at the Peter David Hulk run, and we are in the midst of the Dale Keown era. Last issue was kind of a ho-hum issue as far as, any action and any real development. It felt a little fillery as Bruce and Betty were making their way through this town where the people seemed a little out of touch with reality. And it turned out the town had been taken over by Skrulls. Everybody was impersonating them. And our big cliffhanger reveal at the end was the Super-Skrull. So I really like this cover. It's a good story cover. It's got action. It lets you know what's happening in the book. My only real complaint is with the gray Hulk and then the gray sky, the Hulk is just kind of getting lost in it, and probably, from a distance on the shelf across the room, this one might not jump out. It just doesn't pop quite the same way as, say, like the 372 cover did with the green Hulk ripping through Banner and the gray Hulk's face and coming out at you right off the page. But I do like the perspective of this with the Super-Skrull's fist kind of coming straight at the camera. He's got the Hulk all wrapped up, almost like he has a little bit more leverage on him. And you see them like falling, they're colliding towards the ground at the same time. So there's a lot going on here that adds some good visual interest to suck you into this book. But before I jump into it, I just want to make an announcement that I am doing a giveaway through the month of December. Now is your chance to get a hardcover, oversized copy of Jack Kirby and Wally Wood's Sky Masters, the complete Sunday strips. This book was painstakingly restored using the original color guides and published by the Jack Kirby Museum. It is a great piece of comic book history. If this strip had taken off and been a big success, we may never have had the Marvel Universe. So if you're into comics, you're into comics history, you're into Jack Kirby, you're going to want a copy of this book. I'm also going to throw in one of the shirts from my store. I'm sure you've seen those before. It has my Hulk logo on it. And I've got some surprise bonuses that I will add to the giveaway if I hit certain goals of YouTube subscribers during the contest. It's going to run until January 1st at 12:01 a.m. Now is the time to enter. You can go to readyourcomics.com/giveaway. The link will be in the description, or if you're watching on TV, just hit that QR code on the screen and it'll take you right to it. So let's get to the inside. This opening page feels very burnished to me. Uh, Kirby would set up a scene like this, and it would be all this intricate machine work with circles and squiggly lines and energy coming off of different devices. Then Byrne came along and really like guys just from that era. George Perez did this too, and everything was just kind of like panels, like flat lines, like all this like just straight lines everywhere. That was very typical of the 80s. I mean, I don't know if it like came out of Star Wars or just the technology of the time, but everything was these like stark, straight lines with kind of very jagged edges. And that's exactly what you're getting out of this. Everything is just a bunch of, he just got the ruler out and started drawing lines every which way. I like Dale Keown, especially on this run. I like John Byrne. I like George Perez. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, when I look at it today, it seems unnecessarily busy, but not like Kirby stuff is busy, but in a more interesting, kind of visually appealing way. Whereas the way that like these 80s guys did it, and Keown clearly inspired by John Byrne in so many ways, it's less interesting to look at, in my opinion. The scrolls look great. I do love the way he's got them with like kind of larger heads. Their heads are almost like a little bigger than their body. He's got a great protruding jawline right here on this one here. The scrolls do look really good. Bob McLeod is the inker on this issue, and he does a great job inking Dale Keown. What are these buttons up here doing? What are they doing up there? Who's pushing those buttons? So this pretty much picks up exactly where it left off last time. Rick Jones had been captured by the Skrulls, and they were doing some kind of psychological torture to him and also some physical punishment to his face as well. And he escaped by kicking one that was morphed into him wearing the Bucky outfit, and he stole the Bucky clothes. Now, I pointed out at the end of last issue, usually when the Skrulls transform, the clothes they're wearing transform with them. So is he wearing a Skrull's skin right there? I don't know. He just needed to look like this. So they're questioning him like, "Hey soldier, why aren't you morphed back into your correct form?" And he says he's stuck. And they're like, "What do you mean stuck?" And he's kind of saved in this conversation because outside, Bruce and Betty had been led to this barn by a little girl, and the little girl turned out to be the Super-Skrull. That was the big splash page reveal at the end of the last issue. And as I mentioned towards the front end, that last issue was kind of boring. It was not much Hulk action. He had a little bit of a scene with him and Betty at the beginning of the issue, but the rest of it was pretty much Bruce and Betty, and then this stuff with Rick. Not that it was bad, it was all set up for this, but it did feel like a little bit of filler just to get to this point. The Skrulls are also revealing why they are even interested in Rick Jones at this point, and they're referencing the Kree Skrull War. Now, when I got this as a teenager, I was like 12, 13, something like that when this came out. I had no idea what the Kree Skrull War was. I didn't even really know what the Kree were. I barely knew what the Skrulls were. And I definitely didn't know what the Supreme Intelligence was that he's mentioning in here, that Rick had been empowered with something from the Supreme Intelligence to end the Kree Skrull War. They were basically trying to torture Rick to try to get that power out of him because they wanted to use that power for their own. And that may have been some kind of other ongoing plot with the scroll in other comics that I just was unaware of at the time. It's not referenced here, but we do get a recap of what's been going on with the Super Scroll in just a minute as well. So back outside, you see Betty say, like, stay away from him for your own safety. And the Super Scroll's like, what's he gonna do? Bleed on me profusely? And Bruce, who's stressed out and he's wondering, like, what's going on? Like, is the Green Hulk going to come out again? It's daytime, it's like the middle of the day. And he says he feels like there's a gray fog over his brow. It's a gray haze, which is a good transition to inside his mind where we see the Hulk is like, yeah, Banner, it's me. And he references issue 368, the Sam Keith issue, and about how Mr. Hyde insinuated that Banner was ashamed of the Hulk, which I mean, there's truth to that. He was ashamed of the Hulk, and that's why he only let the Hulk out at night. He can't keep him bottled up all the time, but in the daytime, he didn't want anybody to see subconsciously, so he allowed him to come out at nighttime. But we've been slowly showing cracks in that, going back to that issue, because the Hulk came out a little bit before sunset to fight Mr. Hyde at the end of it. There was another instance too where the Hulk was falling and it was like the sun was coming up, and the Hulk was able to hold on long enough to land before Banner came back out. So slowly the Hulk has been trying to figure out, like, wait, I can stay out a little bit in the day. If I can just get it to where I can stay out the whole day. I'm going to have to assume that Peter David was probably just tired of the whole the Gray Hulk only comes out at night thing. He ran with that at the beginning of his run, and he did a big explanation about how, like, even the moon cycles, the new moon made the Hulk extra cranky because there was no sun reflecting in the sky, whereas a full moon he was a little more docile, more friendly. But then he eschewed all that for the Joe Fixit run, where he pretty much put Banner on the sideline and allowed the Hulk to be out during the daytime, for that like years worth of Joe Fixit stories before Banner came back. So you had to think Peter David was trying to figure out a way of, like, I need the Hulk to be able to just come out whenever I need the Hulk to come out. He can't just come out at night anymore. It's probably too hard to ride around. It probably seems a little ludicrous that any action that takes place only happens at night. A couple issues back, he introduced the Green Hulk back into the mix. And the Green Hulk got to come out during the daytime. And now the Gray Hulk is like, no, I'm not letting him out. If you want somebody to come out and save your butt from whatever's going on, it's me you're going to have to let out. And we get a Green Hulk appearance in this same instance, and some pretty good banter between the two Hulks throughout this little era of issues here. With the Gray Hulk is actually ashamed of the Green Hulk and the Green Hulk's level of intelligence. Puny Hulk, let real Hulk out. He says, put an egg in your shoe and beat it. Hulk doesn't wear stupid shoes. And this Hulk face right here, this Green Hulk, straight out of Burns' Hulk that he was doing in the three teens. And it's giving Bruce there a mighty headache along the way. And this is where we get, I believe, the recap of what's going on with the Super-Skrull. So they don't give us any issues to go look at here. We're going to assume something happened in a Silver Surfer issue where he thought the Super-Skrull was dead and just kind of threw him into the atmosphere, and it doesn't even matter. This is just for the people who were reading Marvel books at the time, who perhaps saw the Super-Skrull appear to die in another book. And this is the explanation that if you were reading the Hulk 2 and the Super-Skrull's showing up, this is your explanation on how he lived to still be there. It has no bearing on anything else going on with the Hulk storyline. It is a filler page of the era of this, very much of this Marvel era, when they did try to make things connected, and I like that about Marvel, especially in this time. I like how things are connected and like little bits kind of crossed over with each other, but it really has no relevance to even these two issues other than the Super-Skrull is there, which that's all you really need to know, right? So Rick is convincing these other scrolls that they should bring in these two. They're friends of Rick Jones, and they should bring them in to torture them in front of Rick. So it's kind of just staving off the Super-Skrull from killing his friends for the moment while he thinks of the next step. So Rick being very resourceful. I like this panel right here a lot of the Super-Skrull's face when he's being told the commander said to bring him in when he was ready to just end him. But the shadow on it, I like the way his eyes are even kind of offset a little bit. He's monstrous looking. And man, this is a great two-page spread of the transformation. And the Super-Skrull says he's going to kill him anyway. He doesn't even care about the commander's orders. And you see Banner getting upset about, what's happening to Betty. And he's like, Hulk, please, Betty. He's like, choose, Banner, her or me. And he says, all right. And he lets the Gray Hulk out. That is pretty important. That's significant. It is. He's willfully letting the Gray Hulk out during the daytime. He hasn't done that to this point. But it's interesting that there's been like mental blockers that wouldn't allow the Hulk to completely do it on his own. He had to have Banner's permission to do it. But I like these three diagonal panels, or two triangles and a diagonal, of his arm changing here. And then this panel right here is just awesome. Look at that pose of him stretching out the Super-Skrull's arm. I mean, it's like he's stretching it thinner right here. It's like pulling on a balloon or something. I mean, that's just such a great Hulk panel right there. And he looks more squat than he has with Keown. Keown tended to draw the Hulk a little taller and lankier, at least initially, particularly compared to the way McFarlane did it, or even Jeff Purvis. They made the Hulk looking squat. He was tall, he was taller than other people, but he always kind of was like compact and fit into the panel almost like a square. But Keown did him just with like longer arms and stuff, and he still does that in here. But here feels more like that squat Hulk than he'd been doing in the previous issues. And then you just got a fun panel of the Hulk punching his head and making it stretch out like a cartoon character or something. Even spoing that sound effect. It's pretty good. Rick gets excited in there in the viewing area, and that's basically blows his cover. And they're like, "Wait a minute, you're Rick Jones. You're not one of the soldiers." And he's like, "Yep, you got me. I could do an impersonation of Indiana Jones. We're related." And then Rick takes off through the scroll ship, this base that they're in. Pretty much the rest of this issue is pure action. And that was what the last issue was missing. Now, these two issues together, I think, do make good make a good like two-part story. Even if I thought the previous issue was a little dull, this one makes up for it with a nice fight between, a pretty high level sparring partner here and the Hulk. This is a great face on the Hulk too. Something Keown is really good at, I think, is doing facial expressions, particularly on these like kind of monstrous creature type of faces. Lighting is really good in this as well. Anytime the Super-Skrull is flamed on, and they did a good job of like lighting it. Like you got dark shadows back here because he's lit up in the front from the flames. Another great panel up here. Look at the bones and the knuckles and the musculature of that powerful hit. And they're just going to crash through buildings, slamming into each other. Super-Skrull getting a little arrogant about how his home is in the stars, and the Hulk doesn't really have the power to do anything against him. Another great TurboGrafx 16 ad that really stands out in my mind. I guess last month most of the Marvel books had that Boink or Bonk, whatever it was called, ad that like stands out in my mind all the time. This Splatterhouse one does too. This was probably the following month. I don't know what time of year these were coming out, but it's like all the Marvel books had this, and they just really stand out in my mind. At least all the ones I was reading. Continuing the fight, and this panel here is going to be used in so much like house ads, and merch and stuff. I had a Hulk hat that I wore through a good chunk of my high school days, and it had like a circle with this Hulk face on it right there. That was the Hulk face they picked. It was embroidered, and said the Incredible Hulk around his head. But this definitely was used a lot. Back inside the ship, a lot more of this 80s style machinery everywhere. Give Keown a chance to draw Captain America here. Even though we know it, Rick knows it, it's a scroll. They're trying to trick him, but it's still kind of cool to see, at least just for a moment. And again, here he is morphing with the clothes on. Why didn't Rick's scroll that he stole those clothes from do that? That is definitely a hole. This scroll is crafty though, and he grows some bat wings and starts chasing after Rick. Can you imagine a whole scroll army doing this? That would be kind of cool to see. And then we get more slapstick humor from Peter David once again as Rick starts to elude him. And he says, I know this ship like the back of my hand. And then he hits a wall, flies into it. Super-Skrull is going to use his invisibility power now. And like I was saying before, the lighting from the fire, you've got good shadows on the Hulk up here. I like the way that he pulled off the invisibility so that we, the reader, can see him. And he throws the Hulk into a building. This is where the Hulk figures it out, though. The Gray Hulk is smart enough to realize that the Super-Skrull can only use one of the Fantastic Four powers at a time. So he snaps off one of these iron bars, and once again doing the knuckles really well on that hand. And as the Super-Skrull moves in to use the Thing's strength to choke him out, you just see this splutch, and the Hulk has stabbed him. And mentions like, yeah, if you'd been stretchy like rubbery like Reed, you wouldn't have been punctured. Or even if your whole body were aflame, it would have just melted. But because you were just rocky, well, I could stab through that. So the Hulk at this point just takes a giant leap up, comes down, smushes him. Meanwhile, Rick has made his way back to the control room of the ship, and he knows that if he just starts pushing some buttons, some things are going to happen. And that's exactly what he does. And it makes this ship start lifting up out of the ground with the Hulk and Betty right on it in the middle, and the Super-Skrull right there, too, laying on the ground. One last gasp by the Super-Skrull, and they're like right dead in the center of the ship. And this is a fun panel of the Hulk just, hitting him like that, like bam. And you got a Bucky as he goes flying through the ship and into the core of the ship. Betty gets flung from it as I guess the ship like jostled, and Betty gets flung, but of course the Hulk, he's gonna grab her on the way down. And as they go up, the core of the ship that is ruptured, it's overloading. What are we gonna do? We explode, and the scroll ship explodes. So Is the Super-Skrull dead again, or did he turn on his uh, invisible woman force field to save himself in that moment? A lot of Skrulls must have died in that explosion. But you know who didn't die? Was Rick Jones. Mr. Resourceful himself. He found a parachute and jumped out before it exploded. The Hulk gives way to Banner. I don't know if it's daytime or nighttime right here. It looks dark like nighttime, but you got the an orange circle in the sky. Is that the sun? Is it what's going on here? I don't know. That's been something that's been inconsistent through a lot of these issues, and the coloring is when it's supposed to be nighttime, it looks like daytime, and when it's supposed to be daytime, it looks like nighttime. I don't know if that was a printing of the time or just the quick production of the issues that they would just mess that up, that the colorist wasn't really completely in tune with what was supposed to be happening in the story. But you think that if if the power set of the main character is determined by whether or not it's day or night, they should have paid more attention to that. So we get a little epilogue, couple of panels with Rick saying like, "Hey, you guys need to meet my girlfriend. You're going to love her." And we see his girlfriend coming down the hallway, and it's revealed to be Marlo Chandler, the same girlfriend of Joe Fixit back in Las Vegas. It's an interesting twist. I don't know what Peter David's initial plan was for Marlo when he first introduced her into the book. I do know that he wanted her to be a prostitute or an escort for an escort service, and the editors wouldn't let him do that with her. So he ended up just making her like some kind of like tall bombshell. And I don't think that during that Joe Fixit era, he did a great job of establishing a real relationship with the Hulk and Marlowe. It was more when Bruce came on the scene and Bruce was his half brother or whatever that more of her character kind of came through. Again, I'm not sure if Peter David intended just to leave her behind in Las Vegas or continue using her further in the story, but I think he found an interesting way to like bring her back, keep her around, and add a little bit more overall drama to Bruce's life. And look at the way Dale Keown is drawing her. He is going to make her an absolute bombshell. Jeff Purvis is the one that mostly drew her. And while I like Purvis's art in general, his line work was so thin and minimal and somewhat angular a lot of times, like almost like a like fashion design in a way. Just real quick straight lines. Keown is going to give her a much more curvy, vivacious look than Purvis did. So over in this letters column, there's not a whole lot of interest in here, mostly talking about the Defenders reunion from issue 370 in particular. There is one though, Dear Hulksters, I hear the Green Hulk is coming back to us. I can't say I'm happy, but here is one theory I've heard from a friend. He thinks the Gray Hulk will remain only at night, leaving Bruce the day to get angry, resulting in the return of the green genes. If this is right, then fair enough. I can see the point as long as there is a smart Gray Hulk. My suggestion is to turn Samson green. And then he comments on issue 370 as well. And they just say, your friend was correct in his theory, at least for now. Sort of. I mean, the Gray Hulk got let out during the daytime here. And I really think at this time, Peter David was just trying to figure out a good way to give the Hulk the ability to be out at any time he wanted. And of course, we know what's going to happen, and it's going to be more than just the Hulk coming out anytime that Peter David needs him to. That's it for this one. We are getting ready to dive into two of the most pivotal issues of the entire Peter David run. And I'm really looking forward to revisiting that era because I haven't really dove in past 377 much since I was just reading it as it originally came out. That's it for this one. Until next time.
Read your comics.